Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Lorcana Invitational Qualifier, sponsored by TCG Player. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat Courier. So, hi, Bomat.
Hi, Bomat.
We have 2 rounds in the books, and we have 2 players in the feature match area ready to play round number 3. When they are finished mulliganing and such, they are good to go, and we'll head down there. We're going to be watching Amber Steele fight against Jesse Unger. We just watched Jesse Unger last round do a nice little yo-yo impression, just bouncing that Bell Stranger Special back to his opponent's hand over and over again.
Right. It kind of seemed like a holding pattern. Just keep doing the same thing a few turns in a row. But the key was that he had Hans in play that whole time, questing for 3 every single turn, and that's what actually let him cross the finish line.
All right. Well, as these players are shuffling up and getting ready here for game number 2, you can roll dice. Who goes first? That's a 10. That's pretty high for Alex Hansen. I have been told in chat that Jesse Unger has never played Lorcana before today, so doing it very well to start. Seems to be a known player who is quite good at other card games. And we'll see if he's able to make our elimination rounds today. One of my favorite things in life is picking up a new game competitively and then going to what is essentially like a PTQ. I've been playing, Magic the Gathering most of my life, and when I was in high school, we would bounce around games all the time. Magi Nation, Dot Hack Sign, card game, Card Fight Vanguard, stuff like that. And it was always fun to just like go to the first couple PTQs because not many people know what they're doing, and so you're just like on a really level playing field even early in the game's life cycle. And Jesse Unger here, while he's new, seems like he has a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Right, absolutely. I had a bit of that experience with Keyforge when that came out, rest in peace. But yeah, always love trying new card games, and it's got to be a special experience for Jesse to kind of come out on top on these first couple days for Lorcana for him. And looks like we saw about 2 cards mulligan for each player, round about there.
Mulligans in Magic the Gathering come with a significant downside. You're 1 card fewer in the hand, but in Lorcana, you just put any number on the bottom and draw that many, and then you shuffle your deck. So not only do you just get like a pretty good opening hand most of the time, but also you get to make sure that the good cards you put on bottom, like the more expensive things, aren't locked there forever because there's just like not a whole lot of ways to shuffle.
Right, and I think that's part of the game rules, in part because that can kind of scare players off from mulliganing. Like, yeah, it might feel like the right move to put one of the expensive cards on the bottom, but you don't really want to do that if you like, I wanted to play this card, but getting to shuffle it back in kind of removes that barrier for a lot of players. And we'll see if this Pascal is enough for Jesse to put on the pressure here. Alex hasn't developed anything onto the board.
Yeah, just a beer, I guess, on turn 2. Not where you want to be. Normally, you want to play that as ink and then play a 1 or a 2 drop. Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist, nice to start challenging. Looks like Hansen's hand is just full of slow 3s, though. Unger here going to play a Flynn Rider in Quest 1 with the Pascal. We draw a Hook, so now we can go Hook plus Prince Eric on our turn.
All right, that's a great way to keep up, but looks like prioritizing this Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician instead.
All right, this is going to threaten a big Tinkerbell Giant Fairy next turn with the shift, and that threatens to eat the Pascal. We'll see if Jesse Unger wants to bounce Tink or ignore it and hope for the best. Ignoring and hoping for the best doesn't seem to work out too well most of the time, though.
Yeah, this is pretty terrifying for Jesse. This is kind of exactly Amber Steele's game plan. If they have a slow start, is just go, you know what? It'll be fine. I will catch up with a Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Jesse would rather not play into that, but a lot of the time you don't have much choice.
All right, Unger going to draw a card with Maleficent. Going to quest 4 3s. Going to put Unger up to 4. And now, though, things are pretty disastrous for Unger if Hansen has the big Tinkerbell shift, and it looks like we have it.
there's not going to be much damage on this Tinkerbell either. So Jesse is going to kind of be in the abyss, right? Any character he plays after this is also going to be eaten up eventually by the Tinkerbell. And Alex, a bit of a slow start, but exactly what he was looking for to
Wow,
get right back into this game.
choosing to quest instead of eating Flynn Rider and the Maleficent with an attack. I
Yeah,
do
this
not
is
agree with this
ambitious.
play from Hansen. Now Unger has a window to get back into the game. These players here making some tough choices, but we'll see how they play out.
And kind of hard to think of a reason Alex might have for not wanting to put just a measly 1 damage on the Tinkerbell, but Jesse is going to try to seize this opportunity to load up the board and, I guess the worst case scenario would be grab your sword, but Hans uh, plays pretty well against that.
All right. Hans does quest for 3. These two characters can't gang up on Alex, though, so we're going to play Friends on the other side to draw 2 cards instead of challenging. Found another Friends on the other side, but can't sing that this turn.
And we also see the Cusco in Jesse's hand. That's going to be pretty good pressure against this Amber Steel deck. They're going to have to probably send one big character or multiple small ones, and things are looking pretty good for Jesse here, with enough pressure to likely be able to close the game out at some point.
All right, so Tinkerbell going to challenge the Maleficent, 2 damage on it, and then 2 damage gets to throw somewhere else, and we're going to use that to finish off Flynn so we don't have to discard. And now we're going to go for the big punish. This is Rapunzel, going to heal some from the Giant Fairy and draw 2 cards. That combined with the board control of the Tinkerbell Giant Fairy means that Hansen is in the driver's seat in a real significant way. Back
And
Unger's way. Draw Mother Knows Best. That could help.
if we sing this Mother Knows Best and play a Cusco, we still have a lot of pressure in play, and the Tinkerbell, a little less impressive without being able to challenge right away and against these higher willpower characters. Let's see how Jesse tries to keep the pressure up. It's the quester's thing. Questing up to 9.
Okay. Gonna go back Alex Hansen's way. Maybe gonna regret this play, not using the Mother Knows Best, but 3 lore is 3 lore. Hansen draws for turn.
The Tinkerbell at least doesn't get to do any extra damage after it challenges the Han, but Alex might be lining up a second Rapunzel here, which would really be damaging. Or, the opposite, healing. Yep, and there's that second Rapunzel. So Alex's board just getting bigger and bigger as he deals with Jesse's threats and drawing plenty. Able to keep inking, keep questing with all this lore in play.
Yeah.
Alex probably turning the corner.
Cusco also not very good at challenging, so I think that this is a pretty easy spot for Hansen to quest for 2 with the Rapunzel.
Right.
Very far behind now is Unger. I mean, I think honestly just playing the Mother Knows Best last turn on that Tinkerbell would have gone a long way, but 3 lore is 3 lore. This Cusco is still sitting in play, pretty scary. Another Cusco in hand is also pretty good. And Jesse Unger says, "Hey, I'm gonna ignore you. Do your worst. His worst is still pretty good, but do your worst, and I'm just gonna keep questing for 3."
Yeah, and we mentioned Jesse being new to this game. When you're coming from another game, you might be a little less likely to look for those opportunities. You say, "I have 5 ink this turn. I'm going to play a 5-drop," and maybe not recognize just how much you can get done when songs are added to the mix. But Jesse is going to need to keep up the pressure if he wants to get anywhere against Alex, who has the board position right now.
All right, gonna tap 3.
We
What you
see
got?
Maleficent. I believe we see a Hans, some options for pressure, or a second Cusco.
All
If
right,
anything's going to get him out of this could be it.
Cusco's on Cusco's. That's how you do it.
The if Alex wants to take care of this first Cusco, it's going to take probably trading an entire Tinkerbell off, and then may not have enough to challenge the second one unless he has more characters to deploy. But drawing 5 cards over these past couple turns, I think Alex might have some gas to contest.
Yeah, Unger should be up to 15 as well. So this is actually, or is he? No.
I don't think so.
Okay. Sorry, there's a lot of threatening of lore coming over the next few turns. So like Unger really needs to find like a couple more ways to gain like 3 lore at a time, so he can just chain these Cuscos up into just like one character that needs to quest to win the game.
Exactly. Alex there playing an aerial spectacular singer and picking up a Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata, not often a card that ends up getting played, getting cast, but is a great card to include if you want to be able to hit more ink off your aerial. And that might be what Alex is doing here, as Hades picks up another copy of Tinkerbell Giant Fairy.
Yeah, and we're going to quest for 4 up to 8 as Alex Hansen. So we're keeping pace, but we're slightly behind on lore. Jesse Unger going to ready here and be able to quest up to 15. Let's see if he can deploy 5 lore at the ready for next turn, even with the Cusco being vulnerable. That's the dream.
Exactly. And if there's any deck that can do it, an Emerald deck can. These, the cheapest 3 lore character in the game in Hans, and then anything alongside that could be enough to put lethal pressure into play. But Alex's board at this point also pretty threatening. This Hades and any of the other characters can team up to get the Cusco off the battlefield. Jesse also kind of stuck in that spot now where you want to get this friends out on the other side out of your hand at some point, but it takes either a sacrifice of lore or a sacrifice of ink, and that's not really what you want to be doing at this point in the game. It is going to be ink.
All right, so Unger is now up to 15 after this Cusco for 3. And now Hansen can challenge the Cusco with what he's got in play. And then still has to deal. Hans isn't lethal. So I think we can maybe quest enough and trade up on the Cusco where we can maybe threaten lethal next turn. Or at the very least, maybe some direct ways like fire the cannons.
Well, no fire the cannons on Cusco with Ward. But yeah,
no. I mean, that's getting killed with attacks. I'm saying you need to be able to deal with the next follow-up from Jesse Unger on next turn. Because the Hans is going to send him to 18, and then you just have to figure out another way to get him off the table.
Sure. And the Hades being able to trade here. Oh, and then a grab your sword being sung by Ariel. And if we have the right follow-up, yeah, we picked up the Tinkerbell last turn off Hades. And this is going to be a great board clear for Alex Hansen.
Yeah, and that's going to come down and fire off the Hans, and then we can quest up to 12. And Hansen really in the driver's seat now. We'll see if Unger has anything to deploy. Did play Friends on the Other Side last turn. Can potentially threaten lethal next turn by deploying 5 lore worth of questing. And if Hansen doesn't have any direct way to move it, that could be all she wrote, but we'll see if Unger has it.
Very impressive game for Rapunzel here. The healing mattered. It kept Giant Fairy in play for multiple turns. Card draw, of course, mattered. Alex has had tons of gas. And now 2 lore on each of those Rapunzels. really letting Alex close the game out before Jesse can deploy too many other threats.
All right, I see a hand. It's 2 Rapunzel and a Mother Knows Best and an Olaf. So we're going to be able to play all 4 cards here. We'll see if we can, what we want to bounce with the Mother Knows Best, if anything. My guess is that we just bounce one of the Rapunzels because they do quest for 2, and they start to add up over the next few turns.
And all these, 3 characters for Jesse, but all 1-drops means that's not going to be enough to threaten a win on this turn. And I think Alex kind of has more than enough to close this game out, game 1 against Jesse.
All right, let's see how he wants to do it. Bunch of ways to potentially win next turn. This turn, I think he's 1 short.
Right.
But I don't think that Unger's deck does anything here, so Unger just going to go ahead and pack it up. No way to come back from this board position, and game 1 goes to Alex Hansen. As these players are shuffling up here for game number 2, just want to take a moment and shout out some of our sponsors. The Apex Gaming Invitational Series, both for Magic and for Lorcana, is sponsored by Ultimate Guard. Make sure to check out Ultimate Guard's products like their cool deck boxes, the Sidewinder, as well as the Boulder. They have really awesome sleeves like the Cortex sleeves and the Katana sleeves. And they have those huge deck boxes that can carry multiple commander decks as well as cubes. I believe those are the archive deck boxes, and those are pretty sweet. We give those away to the top 8s of our invitational qualifiers for Magic, and hopefully we can work up something like that for Lorcana as well in the future. I also want to say a big shout out to TCGplayer.com for being our flagship sponsor for the Invitational next week. They have put up the majority of the prize pool for the event, as we have invited many of Magic the Gathering's biggest killers to compete for their fair share of $5,000 in cash for our Apex Gaming Invitational next week, sponsored by TCG Player. Check out tcgplayer.com for all of your TCG needs. They are the marketplace for everything. If you want to buy cards, you should go there. As we're shuffling up here for game number 2, talk about the mulligans. What are we looking for from each side?
So on the Emerald Amethyst side, we're going to want to see kind of something like what we saw last game with, 1-drop, 2-drop, and a 3-drop, just kind of curve out. But Jesse kind of maybe interested in looking for more resilient threats, like maybe Olaf being able to stand up against a Grab Your Sword. This is kind of the problem, is Amber Steel has a ton of answers for the way Jesse wants to get started. And then, of course, on Alex's side, any of those ways to get through the early game, like Grab Your Sword and Tinkerbell, are what he's going to be looking for. A lot of the time, if you have either big tank or small tank, you're going to want to see how much you can mulligan safely to be able to find that second piece, because that can be pretty devastating, and kind of ask Jesse to use up a Mother Knows Best on an early turn to stop that from coming down.
All right, these players are just about ready here for game number 2. Jesse Unger's Emerald Amethyst deck is going to be on the play. Looking for some blistering starts featuring the Pascal's Rapunzel's Companion, or perhaps just some goons. 2-drop, you usually want Flynn Rider. 3 Cheshire Cat, 4 Hans, 5 Kuzco or Mad Hatter. It's kind of the natural curve you're looking for in an Emerald deck.
Exactly, and if we can cap off the curve with Genie, that could be fairly difficult for Alex to take care of. Would probably require multiple resources, as I don't think this Amber Steel deck has any evasive cards to be able to directly challenge it. Alex? Ooh, perfect answer already for Alex. This Captain Hook Forceful Duelist is going to be able to challenge Olaf if Jesse ever wants to quest with it. That is not what Jesse wants to see.
Yeah, the 1/3 characters, there's only 2 of them right now, right? There's a Minnie Mouse and there's Olaf. So there's one
Right.
for Ruby and there's one for Amethyst. Now when I've been talking to Harlan a good bit, and he posits that the 1/3 characters are very good for being aggressive because they don't allow your opponent to trade with goons. But what I
Right.
see is that most of the best 1-drops include Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist, which embarrasses the 1/3s.
Right. You see this at a few points in the curve when you look at Lorcana matchups, is there are characters that line up very well against, most of their competitors, but then there will be one card that lines up really well. In the case of Simba, most 1 and 2 drops don't line up very well against Simba. At best they trade, but then you have Prince Eric, as we see here from Alex, lines up perfectly against Simba. Of course, Jesse doesn't have that in his deck. Just as an example, there's usually a counter for whatever the best card in the slot is.
All right, Unger here. Going to deploy Rafiki. This is going to eat the Captain Hook Forceful Duelist. Perhaps a misstep from Hansen, leaving his Challenger character vulnerable to the Rush character from Unger. We're going to go back Hansen's way in just a moment.
And we didn't see any Rafikis in game 1 from Jesse. It might not have been on Alex's radar, as Rafiki is a little bit more of a defensive card, but still a great tool in keeping up on the board in matchups like this.
Yeah,
So
it's
Alex getting rewarded.
one big thing about Rafiki that we talk about, especially in Emerald Amethyst, is that it's not inkable. And the best payoffs in Emerald are also not inkable. And so you have to find some places to make concessions. And most players will make the concession on Rafiki so that they can play Genie on the Job, Mother Knows Best, Ursula, 8-drop Elsa, depending on how you build your deck or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of the time I feel like last match I talked about this a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of Mother Knows Best, even though it did win last round. I would maybe lean a little bit more towards Rafiki than Mother Knows Best, but there are definitely things Mother Knows Best can do that Rafiki doesn't come close to.
I like Emerald and Amethyst together specifically because you get to play 2 different 3-cost songs for your Maleficent Sorceress to sing.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe they make another good 3-cost song somewhere, so we have some more ways to spread the love for Maleficent Sorceress. But Mother Knows Best and Friends on the Other Side are 2 of the better ones at 3. Here's the Hans from Unger. Now back
And
Hansen's way.
we haven't seen any sweepers for Alex, but this Prince Eric is doing a great job here. It's keeping this Olaf from questing even after Captain Hook was taken down. And now, even if Hans wants to quest, the Prince Eric can trade for it, which is a tempo loss for Jesse. Part of your world picking up this Captain Hook to be used for ink.
Yeah, Party World is not inkable itself, so using it to sing for ink, and we're going to play Smash on the Haunt to prevent some big lore generation, and then we're going to trade Prince Eric for the Rafiki, and that's a pretty nice battlefield simplification from Alex Hansen. Going to take away some of the more important pieces from Unger here, and we're going to go back his way with a mostly deconstructed board, see if he can deploy one of those big 5s next turn.
You're pretty happy to see this Prince Eric off the battlefield if you're Jesse, I think, because Cusco is mostly unopposed at this point. Alex is, certainly can't challenge it this turn, but is probably going to have to trade 2 characters into it on a following turn. And it looks like Jesse has multiple copies of Cusco, even if he has to ink a Mad Hatter to start getting them down.
All right, here's Cusco, and we're going to quest. Olaf getting in there. No? Takes these backsies?
His finger's still on it.
It happens. Look, you're going through the iterations, right? If you quest with it, you're leaving it vulnerable to a 2-point attack from aerial, which combined with something that deals 1 damage is potentially scary. I think questing's pretty safe. At the very least, if Olaf gets sniped by some bigger thing, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's there to quest a few times before it dies.
And we saw in that early game, there's a lot of trading off. Jesse wasn't really able to get off to a lore advantage. But now we see the threats that are sort of unique to Emerald in Cusco and Genie on the Job is how Jesse's going to try to power through this mid game and actually start threatening a win in just a few turns here.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty scary fighting against Cusco. Like if they play Cusco and your battlefield's empty and you deploy like one thing that can challenge it, your opponent turns on all of their bounce effects at that point, right? Genie bouncing
Exactly.
is terrifying. Even Mother Knows Best is pretty bad because every time your opponent resets you, they're questing for 3 or more.
And Jesse does have that option of uh, deploying a Genie on the Job here and really putting the pressure on. Uh, Looking at a Flynn Rider and a Friends on the other side as Ink Eye. Flynn hits the ink well.
My guess is this is quest for 4 Genie bounce Hans. We are eating Ariel. Interesting. I guess we're trying to make sure that the 5-drop songs don't get cast next turn for cheap or for free.
Yeah, this is still a bit I'm not sure how much we're accomplishing at that point because if Alex has a grab your sword, might not be singing it, but the fact that it gets to take care of this Cusco is almost just as threatening as singing it.
No, I agree. Interesting play there from Unger. Let's see if it backfires. One thing I think newer players to the game, they see a trade that looks beneficial where they get to basically remove your character without removing any of theirs and just putting some damage on their stuff. They think that, hey, that's exactly what I want to be doing, right? I want to be gaining value from trading. And in a lot of scenarios, that's correct. But when you're playing cards like Cusco and you're playing Emerald, I think it's hyper important to always be looking to find ways to quest and put your opponent on the back foot at all times.
Yeah, and challenging like that Cusco did, it took the aerial off the battlefield, and Jesse didn't necessarily lose characters, but challenging like that just isn't free. This Cusco now has 2 damage on it, and that is definitely going to be a factor against steel decks, but also against most other decks are going to be able to take advantage of damage sitting on a character to be able to challenge it for cheaper later. So, like you said, trades look, you know, pretty appealing, but a lot of the time they're not actually trades when that damage ends up mattering.
All right, so John Silver are going to make the Hans be unable to quest, which means it is going to challenge. It'll probably challenge that Cusco. So we're going to go questing for 4. Unger going to go up to 5. This game's been going on for quite a while, and neither player is that high on lore. And I think that what that really shows you is that this game is pretty deep. And even though lore is how you physically win the game, a lot of times you just spend 3, 4, 5 turns just jockeying for position, using your characters to trade, using your characters to leverage your position on the board. And then once you are safe, you start questing 2, 4, 6 at a time, and the game starts to end much more quickly than what the lore totals actually show throughout the entirety of the game.
And we might have seen that, play into Jesse's decision to challenge with the Cusco. Looking at that scoreboard, the scoreboard, thinking I'm not actually gonna finish this game off in the next, 3 turns. I might have to continue worrying about the board and keeping myself ahead.
All right, so Hans is going to go in and eat the Olaf, and then we're going to use Rapunzel to heal it and draw a card, I believe.
This is what you see a lot of times when the players don't reach for the damage dice right away, right? As looks like we're clarifying some lore totals, and Jesse is actually at 5 lore. It looks like.
Yeah, we quested for 4 last turn. It was just a little slow on the uptick.
And there's
All
the
right.
Rapunzel.
Yeah, we're going to draw a card. But John Silver there, sitting on the other side of things, is going to start questing and forcing the opponent's stuff to quest. We'll see if Unger has some punishes here.
And this genie, I think, is going to continue to kind of go unopposed in this game. We'll see whether Jesse prioritizes keeping the genie out of combat, as Amber Steel, not really able to deal with evasive threats very well, other than by loading up a couple of damage spells.
All right, John Silver going to eat the Hans. Going to put 3 damage on it.
And this Cusco, that 2 damage sticking around means if the Cusco wants to quest, Captain Hook is going to easily be able to trade off for it. As we look at our options for Jesse here, we have a second Cusco or a Cheshire Cat, a Megara, Tinkerbell, and just deploy the Cheshire Cat and get some questing on.
All right. I see Meg. It looks like we have a Peter Pan. I think playing that makes some sense. I don't really want to ink anything. I think one big mistake that newer players make is over inking, especially in decks that aren't Ruby Amethyst. I think Ruby Amethyst is one of the few decks that can essentially ink every turn and be mostly happy with it,
Exactly.
especially when they're drawing a bunch of extra cards. All right, we're going to go back Hanson's way, choosing not to deploy that Peter Pan, maybe afraid of a grab your sword, dealing 2 to everything. That specifically is one reason why I don't play Peter Pan in any of my Emerald decks.
And there it is.
Yeah, grab your sword. It's going to take off a bunch of the characters here. It's going to leave a Cheshire at 1, a Genie at 2, but the John Silver and Cusco are down.
Still a decent board here for Jesse. Is getting close to being able to threaten a win, especially if Alex can't find 2 more damage for this Genie anytime soon. And Alex not really close to turning the corner with only 3 lore in play and 4 on the board.
We'll see what Unger wants to do. Has a Megara he can use to buff up the Genie and knock off the Rapunzel permanently. Cheshire, not great at playing offense, but could go Megara plus Cheshire to trade with the Captain Hook. But I think just questing, since we're so far ahead on lore, makes the most sense.
I think Meg is a little underwhelming here. This play really, really opens us up to Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Jesse has to be praying that Alex doesn't have one of those. It'd be pretty devastating.
Another grab your sword would also be very, very strong. We'll see if Hanson has either. But you're just setting up a house of cards. You're trying to get all these value trades, and then all of a sudden, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to 1 AoE damage effect.
Right.
There it is. Tinkerbell Giant Fairy comes down. 1 to Meg,
Ouch.
1 to Genie, 1 to Cheshire. All of them going down.
And just like that, Jesse's pressure is wiped out. We still have that second Cusco in hand, but it's going to have to get in a couple quests at this point to actually win the game. There's that 1 damage on the Maleficent.
All right, we're going to quest for 1 is Alex Hansen with the Captain Hook saying, hey, if you want to trade your Maleficent for my hook, I'm pretty happy about it at this point. That was a great swing turn for Alex Hansen. Let's see if Jesse Unger can redeploy, put some more pressure on. We're at 12 lore. We have Cusco in hand we can deploy.
And the Maleficent at this point, I wouldn't be surprised to see it trade off with the Captain Hook, because the hook can be that much more devastating on defense when one of these other characters ends up questing. But now Jesse has to think about whether to ink a card and play another 2-drop, or just hold on to all these cards and hope to play them out as characters eventually. The Cusco at this point, pretty threatened by the Tinkerbell, though Jesse does have a Genie on the bench once this Cusco quests, Jesse can use the genie to take care of whichever of Alex's cards is most threatening to the Cusco. That could be a route to victory.
Well, both players playing at a snail's pace at this juncture, and time in the round is waning. Jesse Unger wins this game. They might struggle to physically finish game number 3. Back Alex Hansen's way. We have this is Steel's.
Take
Yeah, this is Take-Ah. This is Steel's version of the Aladdin Heroic Outlaw. Take-Ah, this 6-drop. Whenever it hits your opponent's character and banishes it, you get 2 lore from them. This thing is inkable. It's pretty good. Let's get Take-Ah on the screen if we could. This Steel character is quite good, and we don't see too much of it because it's fighting with Tinkerbell Giant Fairy in that 6-drop slot. But Seek the Heart during your turn. Whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore. So doesn't quite do the outlaw thing where you steal the lore from them, you just gain 2, but it can challenge and gain lore at the same time, which is quite nice.
But at the very least, it was important for Alex to get a second threat that can answer this Cusco into play, because Jesse only having one answer, now the Tinkerbell is free to trade off.
Yeah,
If
Genie
that's
on the
what Alex
job
wants to do.
Genie on the job did a nice job of putting the Take-Off back in hand, and now we're going to go back Hansen's way. Unger at 15, but it looks like we drew Grab Your Sword for the turn, so we actually have a full clear here if we want. We go Tinkerbell into Cusco, deal 2 to the Genie, and then Grab Your Sword finishes it off. Unfortunately, I don't think that is going to put Alex Hansen in the greatest of positions because he's basically passing with no board against 15 lore. Tough stuff.
This is true, but it's also, I mentioned there are not too many clean ways for Amber Steel to answer a Genie, and one of the best is just kind of doing it with this incidental damage. 2 lure from a Grab Your Sword that also, I guess here the Grab Your Sword would only be due to the Genie, but you do at least get to get this evasive card off the battlefield. Unless Alex has some better threats to deploy than just answering a Genie.
We take Ha, let the Genie quest for 2. And then next turn we can maybe sing, Grab Your Sword, and do some other stuff. We can also maybe challenge with Take Ha at some point to gain 2 lore, but again, not quite as good as the Heroic Outlaw because you're not stealing the lore from your opponent.
Right, and there are plenty of plays Jesse can make that line up well into a Grab Your Sword, especially this late in the game, where it's going to be difficult for Alex to play a different card to team up with a Grab Your Sword to actually clear. For example, this Tinkerbell with 3 willpower is going to stick around.
All right. Well, we know Hansen has at least Grab Your Sword in hand. If he has Smash and Grab Your Sword, could maybe go sing, Grab Your Sword, smash the Genie, or smash the Tinkerbell on top of that, and then maybe deploy a threat as well. See if Unger wants to go ahead and play the Megra or wants to hold it. Could play it as Ink and then deploy an evasive Peter Pan, but that does get swept up in the Grab Your Sword as well. Here's Megra.
Right, and I like this option because Meg loses to both Tink and Grab Your Sword, but if Alex has Tink instead of Grab Your Sword, your Genie gets to stick around. So Meg kind of only plays into the one you're kind of fine with, and there it is.
All right, Sings Grab Your Sword. We're going to deal 2 to everything on the opponent's side. We're going to clear the Genie and the Meg, but we're at 17 lore. We have 2 on the table still. We're going to sing B, or we're going to play Be Our Guest, not sing it. Definitely not where you want to be when you're facing down lore generation with your opponent at 17. There's Big Tinkerbell. That can finish off the little Tinkerbell, but not this turn.
Pretty threatening for Jesse, though. Will get rewarded for holding back on this Peter Pan. Peter Pan, of course, does not die to the Tinkerbell, like I said. So that might just barely be enough to get over the finish line, especially if Alex feels like he has to smash this Tinkerbell.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and burn the smash to get the Tinkerbell off. And now We're in a weird scenario. Jesse Younger here needs to find a way to quest for 3 over the next few turns. Not under a lot of pressure. The Takeoff can't challenge anything directly that's not exerted. So any of the characters Jesse plays over the next few turns will just kind of be hanging out.
And this is a situation that Amber Steel is a little worse at dealing with as compared to something like Ruby Amethyst, where we saw Ruby Amethyst answer all these readied characters, turn after turn. Ember Steel relies a little more on challenging, plus all this small damage removal, which is not going to line up well against this untapped John Silver or any of the next couple threats that Jesse plays.
All right, and Takeoff unable to quest here, so we're going to just pass back. Jesse Younger here can quest for 2, can make the one of the 2 characters not be able to quest. I actually think that this might be a really bad quest. I think the questing for 2
I
here
agree.
means that you're going to get punished in a lot of ways, but looks like we drew Mother Knows Best, so we could play that and the Peter Pan. That actually might give us a shot here.
That's a great way to close the game out. Yeah, uh, the John Silver is not able to stop challenging, of course, because it gives reckless, and that's what you're afraid of is this Tinkerbell challenging it. But bouncing the Tinkerbell could be enough to get Jesse over the finish line.
There's a Jasper.
Oh, there is no Mother Knows Best.
Yeah, it was Flynn, I guess.
So we misread the hand, and that's gonna do it.
Yeah, 19 lore couldn't quite clear both things. And we got a game 3 on our hands. These players are getting dangerously low on time, though. So we're going to watch them play hot and heavy, and we'll try to keep up with the action as best as we can as these players try to finish game 3 before time runs out.
And Amber Steel now is going to be able to be on the play. Is there the first few characters for Jesse are likely only going to be able to quest once into all these early answers that Alex has in Captain Hook Forceful Duelist and Prince Eric. But it's possible Jesse is going to have to play another one of these long games, try to get over the finish line. We'll see if they even have time for that.
All right. Players are just about ready to go here. Going to resolve mulligans. We're in round number 3, game 3. Players are deciding their opening mulligans for game 3.
Looks like maybe 3 cards for Alex. I didn't quite see, and quite a few more for Jesse, only holding on to 2.
Yeah, gonna go digging for 5, looking for a better curve. Maybe getting rid of some of those uninkables. Emerald Amethyst has quite a few uninkables in the deck. And those you don't want to have in your opening hand too much because it gets a little bit weird.
And we talked about in Alex's deck, Teika, kind of competing in steel against the other 6-drop in Tink Giant Fairy. But that competition is a lot less severe when both cards are inkable, and you can just kind of put extras in your deck.
All right, here's turn 1 Captain Hook from Alex Hansen's Amber Steel deck, putting You Have Forgotten Me into the inkwell.
Not what you want to see when you've got that Olaf in your hand.
Yeah, just getting bricked off here pretty hard. No 2-drop character here for Hansen. Does have a BR Gas. We're going to go ahead and play that. Look at the top 4, looking for a character to play. Finds Rapunzel.
All right.
Now the question is, do you want to quest? This leaves you open and vulnerable to Megara. Let's see if Jesse has the turn 2 punish with Megara.
Meg would be great. I also don't just love this. I just don't love this quest in general for Alex. When you quest with a challenger like this, if your opponent wants to, they can take the opportunity to get a damage trade at a better rate than usual.
Ooh.
But Jesse has the answer instead and gets a lot of momentum here.
Momentum.
Alex got that Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician at the front of the pile, but doesn't have a giant fairy to follow it up. Even just playing this Tinkerbell, though, can make your opponent think twice about what they want to play.
All
Like
right.
if you're in Jesse's spot here, if you don't have any interaction, do you even quest with the Olaf? Because, you know, whatever you play out here. Oh, Jasper actually 4 willpower lines up pretty well against a shifted Tinkerbell.
All right, we're gonna quest for 2. Tinkerbell now can just do some chewing. This is basically Unger saying, okay, I think you have Tinkerbell 6, so I am just gonna go ahead and play my game. I'm gonna quest for 2, and now Hanson doesn't have the big punish. We'll see if he wants to go Tinkerbell into Rapunzel. That seems like a pretty good turn here.
There
All
we
right,
go.
Meg down. Here comes Rapunzel. We're gonna draw 2 and refresh.
And
And we're
now Jesse is in the position where his opponent has that many more looks at another Tinkerbell, and the Tinkerbell is completely healthy. Ergo, still a threat. This is a good time to play Friends on the other side, though, probably. Love to sing that card.
all right.
And
Jasper here gonna sing Friends on the other side. We got a grip full now for Jesse Younger. See what he wants to deploy as ink and as threat.
we do have plenty of ink in hand, meaning this genie on the job likely to be able to come down on turn 6 if the board looks right. And that, like I said, can be fairly difficult for Alex to deal with. For now, it's just going to be a Jasper.
Now the question is, do you play the Olaf or do you go ahead and just save it as a guaranteed ink for next turn? It looks like Unger's going to save it for ink for the next turn. I like that play.
I agree.
All right, going to go back Hanson's way. Going to play an aerial. Spectacular Singer. Going to go digging. Top 4. Finds an Akuna Matata. This one's nice to put into the ink well when nothing needs refreshing. And that's what we're going to do.
I like seeing Alex putting his hand down way off that playmat, trying not to get it confused with his inkwell while he's looking at those aerial cards. And now I think there was in that aerial pile there was a grab your sword, but that doesn't actually line up great against Jesse's board right now, with all the willpower in these Jaspers. And Alex going to take this turn to leave Tinkerbell readied and not expose it to any challenging from Jesse.
All right, Unger. Got a grip full. Olaf seems to be like a guaranteed ink. And then we can play Mad Hatter. Can only play 1 card this turn, so I think the biggest, baddest is the one you want to do. Here's Hatter. We can quest with the Jaspers and make some opposing characters not be able to quest. Hey, dude, TCG, thanks for the raid. Appreciate it. Hope you had a great stream. Welcome, Raiders. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat Courier in the booth. We are in round number 3 of our Disney's Lorcana Invitational Qualifier. The Invitational is presented by TCGplayer.com, and we will be bringing you that invitational next weekend. But the players today are playing for their fair share of $2,000 in cash and prizes, as well as an invitation to that event. It's going to be a 16-person invite-only event with $5,000 cash on the line. And we've invited such heaters as the former Magic World Champion Nathan Stoyer, Mason Clark, who's currently doing coverage of the NRG Magic event right now, and going to have a lot of other great players. Here's a huge play, though. Grab your sword, sung off aerial, spectacular singer, going to clear off the Olaf, deal a lot of damage to these Jaspers, and now all these smaller characters are looking to potentially trade in.
And we see just a beast is the follow-up. So grab your sword, the amount of damage it dealt is meaningful. All those the 2 on those 4 willpower characters is going to end up mattering this game, but Jesse gets to keep questing with them in the meantime.
And Alex choosing not to challenge a Jasper with the Tinkerbell, instead going to loot away a Hakuna Matata. This is a very, I don't know, it's a very, I don't want to, it's a passive play. It's not a weak play, it's a passive play.
Definitely. Alex may be trying to commit this Tinkerbell towards the Mad Hatter next turn, but if Jesse had wanted to, he could have just taken care of the Tinkerbell. So I think the choice between exposing it and not, Alex chose to expose it, but also not take a Jasper off the battlefield. Maybe worried about the state of his hand and trying to improve it before the game is over.
All right, well, looks like we're going to be singing. This looks like a Be Our Guest. So look at the top four. We're digging for Tinkerbell Giant Fairy.
And I think there was a grab your sword in that pile, but this was the wrong dig spell. So that goes on the bottom. And we picked up a beast that is not really going to do it. These readied Cheshire Cats threatening for 4 more lore in addition to the 5 that exerted. And we are in time now. So this game has got to end quick.
All right, we do have a smash that can take care of the Hatter. And then we can send some Knuckleheads in and take care of the 2 Jaspers. And then Cheshire Cats are only going up to 15 next turn. So potentially still in play is Alex Hansen. Unlikely he'll be able to get to 20 lore before the end of turns, but we'll see.
Alex shaking his head. Nothing quite lines up well. It'll just be a smash on a Cheshire Cat.
Okay, this is going to protect life total a bit better, and then we can challenge the Hatter instead. It's going to allow Unger to draw a card, but we don't lose our character.
Prioritizes preventing that card draw instead of taking care of the Hatter. And Jesse with 6 lore in play. Ah, there we go. We get to keep our beast around and still take care of 2 of Jesse's characters. Jesse going to need some lore off the top to be able to threaten a win in the next couple turns.
Let's see if Hansen does have 4 ink still left over. I think maybe still has the ability to play an ink for turn as well. Gonna go for Hades, gonna get back something. Looks like Captain Hook Forceful Duelist. Let's see if it's ink or if it's gonna stay in the hand. All right, we're gonna go back Unger's way. We have Cheshire Cat and Jasper. We only have 11 lore. My guess is that this match ends in a draw. Unless Jesse Unger drew Cusco for turn and draws another Cusco next turn, I think it's going to be pretty hard to actually get over the finish line. Hand does have some evasive characters, though. We do have Tinkerbell and Genie on the job. All right, we're going to quest for 3.
This Genie could definitely get the job done. Genie plus any threat the following turn that Alex might be unable to answer could definitely get Jesse there. And we see it is now turn 1. So Jesse's going to get 2 more turns after this, and so is Alex. Try to keep that in play. There we go.
There's Genie. What do you want to bounce? A beast. The Mirror Breaker.
Bounce the big thing that doesn't do anything.
Yep, it's a good bounce. Here we go. All right, turn 2 turns. Alex Hansen has this turn and next turn to potentially get to 20 lore. Otherwise, he is a draw at best and a loss at worst.
Yep, and there's another Hakuna Matata getting inked. We maybe see Alex getting punished for putting kind of a subpar card in You Have Forgotten in Hakuna Matata. It does have synergy in the deck with Ariel and ink it, but even if a card can be inked, sometimes you'll draw that off the top and it doesn't do what you want to do, and you just kind of feel stuck. You saw he took a turn off with Tinkerbell to loot away one Hakuna Matata, and then on this pivotal turn, drew it and wasn't really able to add to the board. So there are downsides even with inkable cards.
All right, so a lot of stuff trades off here. Here's a beast. And a Captain Hook. We can quest for one with the Hades.
And it's just very unlikely Alex is ever going to be able to assemble enough lore here with only
Well,
6 in play.
Look, it's turn 2 of turns, and neither player can win, right? One's at 14, one's at 4. Jesse
Can
Unger.
absolutely win.
No, he has. Oh, he has 2 more turns. I thought this was his last turn. You're right. All right. We can quest up to 16, and then we need to get another 2 lore evasive on the table, and it looks like we have it with that Tinkerbell. So let's see if Hansen has the answer. Unger might be able to steal it on turn 5 of turns.
Pretty much just has to be a smash for Alex. There are very few other outs. And Jesse, every lore matters here. Might be looking at exactly enough.
He has a Friends on the other side and a Befuddle. And he's inking the Befuddle to play the Friends on the other side. I kind of like using the Befuddle to bounce the hook. I don't know why. Did he just draw 3 cards instead of 2? He did.
I think when you think about what's going to matter this game, yes, it seems a little more likely that Alex having an extra lore on this turn. No, but Alex was never going to win.
All right.
I don't think that was systematic.
No,
All right.
it didn't matter.
5 minutes after the round ends, Jesse Unger pulls it out against Amber Steel.
Yeah, nicely done. It seemed like the Amber Steel matchup was gonna pound him, but ultimately, I think if you just don't draw the answer to the evasive characters, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really like the 4-cost Tinkerbell in the Emerald decks. Not only does it give you something nice to punch through something like Simba Bodyguard, because you can give your opponent's stuff evasive, and if you give a bodyguard character evasive, you can't challenge it.
Yeah.
And so you can just use that to shoot through their 1-drops. But you can also use Tink to give one of your things evasive to challenge your opponent's evasive characters. So a lot of really nice things that can do there. And I've been enjoying playing Pongo in many of my Ruby variants, and Tinkerbell is basically just Pongo with huge other abilities. So I think it's just a good card in general.
And then we saw Genie on the job. Very difficult for Amber Steel to take care of. They kind of need a lot of resources. That game got to the place where both players had used a lot of resources, and the Genie kind of went unopposed and just barely made it to the end for New Lore.
Yeah.